Greetings, gentle viewers, and welcome back to another episode of The Broken Wheel. This episode, I want to dive into the One Power and what it means to be a channeler. This will have some spoilers, but nothing really related to the plot. If you haven't seen my previous videos, especially the first one, I recommend that you do so, for I will be referencing some of the topics I've already covered in that one. But with that said, let our journey begin again. The One Power comes from the true source, the driving force of creation, the force the Creator made to turn the wheel of time. It doesn't have quite the same elegance as it's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, penetrates us, binds the galaxy together. But it does give a channeler his or her power. The basic idea to understand about channeling is that a person with the ability to do so will first touch the true source. The best way to think of this is like turning on a faucet. A person forms a connection to the true source, and the One Power flows into that person as long as they maintain that connection. This concept will be important to remember later. Once they are connected, they will then build whatever weave, as it's called, out of threads of the One Power. That person can maintain the weave for as long as they keep feeding threads into it, but once they stop, the power will naturally return to the true source, making the One Power a completely renewable energy source. A person can make a weave linger without them actively maintaining it. This is referred to as tying it off, but doesn't make the weave permanent. Instead, the effects of the weave will persist for a time dependent on how thick the threads of the weave are. After that, they will fade as the power eventually dissipates. Weaving is better thought of as chemistry than traditional textiles. For one thing, weaves of the One Power are three-dimensional and can take the form of geometric shapes. But also, especially in more complicated weaves, threads have to be worked into the weave in specific amounts, orders, and combination to make them work correctly. If a weave is not done right, then at best it will fail, or at worst go out of control, having any number of unwanted effects. The threads of a weave will each be made of one of the 5 elements, or powers as the Aes Sedai call them, of the true source: earth, air, water, fire, and spirit. These threads can be small or large depending upon the desired effect. For example, if you just wanted to warm your cup of coffee, you would channel a thin thread of fire into your cup. But if you wanted to, say, chuck a huge fireball to set a house on fire, then you would channel a very large thread of fire. Channelers will develop the ability to visually perceive the threads of the power they are weaving as well as those of other channelers. This is how weaves are traditionally taught, by one person demonstrating it and the other learning to replicate it. Now that you got a general idea of how channeling works, I want to dive into what it actually means to be a person that can channel. As stated in my previous video, the true source has a female half, Saidar, and a male half, Saidin. People can only touch the half that corresponds to their own gender, making the true source totally insensitive to the transgender community. Either way, the ability manifests typically in late adolescence to early adulthood. Most will never know they can touch the true source until they are taught how to do so. However, there are some individuals with the spark, as it's called, and will touch the true source inevitably even if they are unaware they are doing so. Much like the Force, people are born with an inherent strength with the One Power, with those who have the spark typically being the most powerful. One's strength with the One Power will determine how much they can safely channel and for how long. Channeling takes a physical toll on the channeler and will quickly exhaust the person if the ability is overtaxed. Pushing beyond this limit can have many harmful consequences, including injury to others, burning out the ability to channel permanently, or even killing them. Every individual channeler will have an affinity with at least one of the 5 powers of the true source. This is not to say that they can't channel the ones they don't have an affinity with, more to say that channeling threads of the element they do will come more naturally, and weaves that contain those elements will be learned more easily. Now, people can have an affinity with more than one, but this becomes more rare the more elements one has an affinity with. Having all 5 is extremely rare, with only a handful of people throughout history known to have this ability. Aside from gender lines, there are many differences between channeling Saidar and Saidin. In fact, the very nature of the two are quite different in themselves. When a woman touches or embraces Saidar, she must submit to it and let it flow into her like a powerful river. She must then learn to guide the river or persuade it to do what she wants. The mere act of embracing Saidar makes the woman feel more alive and heightens her senses to a large degree, making her often reluctant to let it go. When a woman embraces Saidar, a bright white aura will appear around her body that other women channelers can see even if she's not performing a weave. However, women cannot sense if a man is channeling Saidin. Women channelers will be able to sense when other women are channeling at a distance. How far away depends on how much of the one power the other woman is channeling. They will also be able to tell if another woman has the ability to channel if they are nearby. When a man seizes Saidin, it rages into him in a torrent of force that he must learn to bend to his will or be swept away. The man must then wield Saidin's tempest might while keeping it strictly under his control. Men channelers also gain heightened senses and a feeling of inhalation while holding Saidin. However, they cannot sense when another man is channeling as accurately as women do. They cannot see if a man is holding Saidin either. They instead experience a sense of awe and menace and have a harder time determining which direction the man is compared to women channelers who can do so with a much better accuracy. Men channelers can sense when women are embracing Saidar nearby, though they can't perceive it visually. Rather, it comes in the form of goose flesh. A male channeler cannot immediately sense if another man can channel like women do. He must instead employ a more active test to where Saidin is channeled and he waits for a feeling of resonance from the man being tested. Now, on average, men tend to be stronger with the one power individually, while women tend to be more dexterous with it, enabling them to learn and assemble more complex weaves faster. On average, men are stronger with earth and fire, while women are stronger with air and water, with spirit being equal between the two of them. This is not to say that a woman can't be strong with earth or a man with air, only that this is typical. Channelers can combine their strengths to form even greater weaves in a process called linking or forming a circle, as the Aes Sedai call it. As the name implies, channelers will combine their flows of the one power into a single weave that is more precise than what can be accomplished individually. One person will be the leader of the circle and will control the combined strength weave performed and when the link is ended. This is typically the strongest channeler in the circle, but control can be willingly passed to another. Affinities with the 5 elements may also be passed to the leader as well. There are limits to the size and makeup of a circle that revolve around gender lines. Only a woman can start and form a link. Men cannot link with other men, only with a woman. In order for multiple men to be in a circle, there must always be more women than men to extend it. However, women can link with other women up to a circle of 13. A man must then be added to extend the circle another 13 women. After that, only 8 women may be added by a man joining the circle to a maximum of 72. The best circles are ones where there is a balanced ratio between the men and women. This is why modern Aes Sedai cannot perform the same works as they once did in the Age of Legends. When channelers fight one another, they do not engage in duels of fireballs and lightning bolts. Not that they couldn't or don't against non-channelers. Because channelers can see the weaves other channelers are making, they can also unravel them. An experienced and knowledgeable channeler can unmake an opponent's weave before it can cause any harm or even prevent them from forming it altogether. Typically, channelers will try to get the drop on other channelers and block their connection to the true source. Going back to my earlier analogy on how one touches the true source, a channeler can use a focused wedge of spirit to obstruct the flow of the one power into another. That person can attempt to stop this block from happening with a shield of spirit of their own, but this quickly devolves into a contest of strength of will and of the one power. But once one is blocked off, it is virtually impossible to get out while the other channeler maintains the block. Now, it is possible to permanently sever one's connection to the true source. This is called gentling for men and stilling for women by the Aes Sedai. This is used as a form of punishment at times by the Aes Sedai, though usually only reserved for severe transgressions against the White Tower, while for men it is seen as a necessity to stop them from going mad. Regardless of gender lines, the person will immediately fall into a deep depression at the loss of the exaltation of touching the true source, with most inevitably taking their own lives. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode of The Broken Wheel. As always, if you like this content, please drop a like or consider subscribing or turning on notification to help the channel grow. As always, thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you next time. Until then, may the light protect you.